Happy today. I am William Brown from IamWilliamBrown.com. This is Disconnect to Connect One Word Conversations. Now, this show is sponsored or brought to you by IamWilliamBrown.com. And this is the time where I do a little commercial that I am still uncomfortable with doing, but I have to do it because I guess baby has to eat, I guess. Um, IamWilliamBrown.com is a place where you have conversations and items that help you to be yourself and to live your life. One of the things that is available there is the U cards. It's intention setting cards that I partner with my U journal, as you can see in the back there, the U journal, so you can spend 15 minutes with yourself. So I've picked the U card for today, and my I am card is I am purpose. I think that came up earlier this week, so yeah. So I'm just gonna just kind of sit with that. You are full of joy. Always good. Always like those because joy, when joy comes, there's a lot of laughter and smiles. So that's always good. And my quote is the scripture Jeremiah 1:5. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. And that's the you that I'm asking you to connect to. So, with that in mind, I am going to introduce our word for today. And our word for today is happiness. And I I don't say with all of the words I have like this love hate relationship, right? I say I have a love hate relationship with this word. But happiness is really something that I've embraced. And as you know, I say happy today all the time, and I'll bring that up within the conversation. But it is it is something that I believe that you have to be intentional about. For me, happiness or happy doesn't just show up. I have to invite happiness in my life, and I choose to do every day. So, with that in mind, I will bring in my guests and we'll have a conversation.
Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hello. Now, this is that time where I invite my guests to introduce themselves however it feels comfortable to them.
Hi, thank you. Thank you, first of all, so much for having me on. I'm really excited to be here just because I get to hang out with my friend.
Right, that's great.
Yeah, and talk and have a nice an in-depth conversation about anything. I'm just so happy to be with you. And yeah. So I'm Erin Moon, and self-introduction notes is always that funny thing, right? It's the same thing about you feeling discomfort around what I am William Brown is. It's like
Right.
what
Right.
I am Erin Moon is. Um, so I'm a yoga therapist, and I'm also an actress, a performing artist. And mostly right now, how that manifests in my life is I'm an audiobook narrator, and I've been doing that for over a decade now, and in the industry of audiobooks as a whole for 15 years. And
Okay.
I teach it as well. And I've been teaching yoga for 15 years. 15 years, yeah.
Wow.
And I teach yoga instructors. I live in beautiful, beautiful Vancouver, Canada. And although today it's typical Vancouver, Canada, and it's just rainy, just
Right.
super rainy.
Right.
I'm an avid gardener, and I lived in New York City for 13 years. I grew up in Canada and then moved to New York, and I moved here 6 years ago, and just for a work-life balance shift,
Mm.
and it's been a really great transition in my life, and I love being here to be able to absorb all the nature that is very, very, it expresses itself very loudly here in Vancouver, which is awesome. It's much better than honking cabs.
Right. I totally got it. And this is one of those mornings where I get to acknowledge how how much I feel loved that I have friends on the West Coast that get up so early for me for these conversations. So this is definitely that. So the question of the day is,
Mhm.
how does happiness land for you?
Yeah, so I've been thinking about this a lot. You know, the first thing I thought is it's complicated.
Hmm. Right.
um, my relationship around happiness has been a fascinating one. I think I grew up as a real happy kid. Like I
Hmm.
just, came out into the world with just an inner sense of joy and a love, and I was a real cuddly kid. And the thing in my family was I was only 6 hours of labor, and my siblings were both over 30. So
Wow. So your mom was happy, right?
yeah, my mom was like, "Hey, this baby, she's." I came in with happiness. She's like, "Oh, thank God, it's over." um, and so I had that kind of just innate, uh, just peace and happiness, I think, as a kid.
Right.
And then and all throughout my development as a younger person and young adult, and then like as life kind of transitioned and shifted, I went through a major traumatic event in my life. And my late husband, he became ill with cancer, and then passed. And
Hmm.
that that section of my life, it was like an alternative got presented to me.
Hmm.
And that's a pretty blessed life to get to that point in my life. I was 34, 33 when he got sick. And to have not fundamentally struggled with a baseline of happiness.
Hmm.
Um, and I don't think I even had delineated what are the elements of happiness, because it's not a singular state of being, I believe.
Right. Got it.
I feel like it's very fluid. That happiness, is how we describe contentment. It's how we describe moments of joy, like
Right.
the huge, big moments of life, but also the quiet and soft moments of life. I
Right.
think melancholy also has a piece of happiness in it. It's the smile with tears falling down your face.
Right.
So it's that's it was interesting just being presented with that. And as I came out of, or not came out of, because grief is what you carry with you all the time. You just learn how to carry it differently.
Right. Wow.
Um, but I I think it was the first time where I went, why is everybody obsessed with this thing?
Right.
And it felt
Got
like a
it.
lot of pressure.
Hmm.
I have to be happy all the time. I have to be happy. That will what is, and it's like I don't even think I ever thought about what happiness even is
Right.
until presented with a real fundamental opposite for such a long time.
Right. No,
You know?
I totally get that. And my
Yeah.
I think my and thank you for sharing that. And that is something for for me when I mentioned that the love hate relationship with with happiness, it was because in my childhood I considered myself a happy person, right?
Hmm.
But felt like it was always put in question. It's
Yeah.
like, why are you so happy? Like, we live in the
Yes.
projects, we, we're black, we shouldn't,
Yes.
it's like you shouldn't be as happy and smiling and all that other kind of stuff. So it was something that in some cases I felt like I had to hide. I had to kind
Yeah.
of not share, hey, that, I'm good, right? Type of thing.
Yeah.
And so I disconnected myself from my my happiness,
Yeah.
and it was this just I just showed up as almost neutral, and there was a level of not expecting great things, really manage my emotions and all
Yeah.
that other kind of stuff. And it was very I enjoy unlike you, I've been a part of the performing arts and that. And even though I enjoyed that, being an actor and being in that space, I allowed my roles in things to help me express my emotions
Yeah.
or emotions versus myself. And so it was like it's like, oh yeah, I'm happy that I get to do my emotions, but they're not mine, right? They're the
Yeah.
character, they're somebody else. And so there, I created this disconnect. And so it was really when I went through, trauma or some things that I wasn't on the plan for my life, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
It was like, all right, what do you want, right? What what are how are you going to show up? Are you going to show up reserved and kind
Yeah.
of not show people your emotions and all that other kind of stuff? Are you just going to be just there? And it was like, I'm not happy with this. I'm not happy with this. And once I admitted that, the question of what will make me happy? What is happiness? What does that mean for me? What turned into the journey,
Yeah.
and turned into
Yeah.
the conversation.
It's amazing. It's amazing to have that relationship shift and change, and to
Mm.
it's almost like your inner happiness. It sounds to me almost like it was like bragging if you showed it,
Right.
that you
Hmm.
just lived in that. You came into this world with that.
Right.
Yeah, and for you to find your way back to it and find the connections, right,
Right.
that had kind of gotten lost along the way is what an amazing journey.
Right.
Yeah.
It's the other thing that we've connected to was a good life
Hmm.
project, and the interesting thing about that is that I connected with the Good Life Project, but when I wasn't happy, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Almost because I wasn't happy,
Yeah.
but I looked as if things appeared that I was, but there was a knowing within me that, all right, there's a part of my life that is like not that I'm okay with. And so the whole question about, what is a good life, can I have a good life and all that other kind of stuff. I remember even in the craziness of, the first year at camp and connection of, unicorns and, rainbows and all that, all the
Freezing our butts off that
right,
first
freezing the
year.
butt, right. And everything that was happening, it was like, in all of this, I'm happy. And it was like,
Yeah.
what is going on? How can, how is this? How, and it's like I was like connected and one was not connected to the happiness. It was kind of, yeah, this is what you need, but at the same time, I was in this state of unhappiness
Yeah.
that it was like, okay, I have no idea how to process this. I have no idea to connect with this. This is familiar and foreign at the same time.
Right. It's like dipping your toe back into your essence.
Right.
Like, oh, I'm in this place that feels very safe and supported to be who I am. And then like who you are shows up over here and it's like, hey, I've been waiting.
Right.
And you're like, but I don't know you anymore.
Right, right. It's like, who are
Yeah.
you?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like, and almost kind of waiting for, someone or the world to say, hey, you
Yeah.
can't be this happy. This is
Totally.
not, only reduce it to this time or anything like that. Well, that's what you did at camp, or that's what you did around those people, those,
Yeah.
happy, crazy people, or, or something, right?
Yeah.
And just kind of go from there. And just the one thing that you were saying is like all the different things that show up within happiness
Yeah.
and just embracing that. Why do you think that because I've done this myself. Happiness is only laughter and joy and giggles and all that other kind of stuff. It can't be
Yeah.
all the other things that come along with it.
I don't know because I it's one of the things that always kind of bug me when like there's so many books about, just be happy, and it feels like this socialized pressure to
Right,
just like you said, like have this huge big grin on your face and be like
right,
be super positive all the time. And I remember even reacting to our good friend Amelia Zhevotovskaya, and yes, it took me a very long time to be able to say her name,
right,
to with positive psychology, because I was like, I don't like positive and happy all the time. And then I learned, because I actually took her 200-hour certification in applied positive psychology, and part of me doing that was to actually face, I think, the thing that almost feared, this idea that it had to be all the time.
mm,
And I think, like anything, we can't have a sense of happiness, whatever that is for us, which is
right,
fundamentally personal.
right,
Although it's interesting is when they do research on happiness, the elements that people express across culture, even what cross culture can be quite different, because it's what is the cultural value of certain things, like what is the
mm,
cultural value of spirituality, what is the cultural value of money, what is the
right,
cultural value of family, what is the cultural value of like things in your life.
right,
But some of the like what you want and some of the aspects of happiness is how we feel inside. Those
right,
things tend to be more similar,
right, mm,
and so just being you can't see your happiness if you can't see your sadness.
right,
You can't feel your happiness if you can't feel your grief, in my
right,
perspective. You
right,
can't, like right now, with everything that's happening in our world, and how it's compiling, and how it's also, especially with the resurgence of the Black Lives Matter movement, that this isn't a new thing. This has been happening
right,
it's not a new movement. It's not a new, these are not new things actually, that
right,
communities have been talking about for time immemorial.
right,
Um, and so with all of that, what can be felt as a deep heaviness in our
right,
lives, how does happiness manifest, and what is our relationship with this idea, which
right,
really, we can name, like, sadness is an emotion, or fear is an emotion, or uncertainty is emotion, or joy, or I wrote down a couple of different things. Yeah, contentment, interest,
right,
love, all the things that the
right,
experts say comprise
right,
happiness. It's
right,
like, well, happiness isn't one thing.
right,
It's a general sense of life worth, or
right,
satisfaction, or so it actually encompasses all those things. Nostalgia has
right,
happiness in it,
right,
because it's a remembering. It's a sad remembering, but it's that, again, like melancholy. It's that remembering with a little turn up of the sides of your mouth. So is
right,
not happiness living in that moment too?
great.
You
No,
know,
yeah,
it's actually super complicated. That's why
right,
I
it's
thought of
great.
happiness and I was like, that's complicated.
Right, right. And I totally get that. And, sometimes I do things without total awareness, but I just do things. I don't know if
Mm,
you're like that too, right?
yeah.
And so when I started saying happy today, was it was mainly about me taking ownership of my day and just kind of
Mm,
living my life, right? And so because I felt that there were so many days that I wasn't present in, that I had no intention for it. It was just like, okay,
yeah.
my eyes are open and I got to do shit, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. Totally.
that was
Totally.
it. And so for me, happy today, it reminds me that I'm in today, and I'm going to be present in my day, and whatever comes up, whatever I'm
Yeah.
dealing with, I'm going to not just look for happy, be with happy, experience. I just kind of have that a part of equation,
Yeah.
of it, and however it shows up, if because there has been times where, if I've been more reflective and melancholy or something, and it was like, yeah, this was a happy day, and it was
Mhm.
like, huh, it's like, all right,
Yeah.
and it's really embracing the fullness and the
Yeah.
complications, of happiness. Because like I said before, that I felt that it was something that I had to hide, or I was like, this is really crazy how this come. It's inappropriately happy, right?
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like you're right.
totally.
It's like
Totally.
inappropriate and happy. It just doesn't seem like it should be in the same sentence, right?
Yeah.
So, but it was like
Yeah.
that was the feeling that I had, and then it was like my awareness of happiness was like after the fact. It
Yeah.
was like now it was like, geez, I was happy, but now I'm dealing with this. It's like,
Yeah.
let's get back to there, right? Right?
Can't go back to
Whatever,
where I
wherever,
started.
right? And so it's like, so just being with it and staying with it, and it's like a part of showing up as myself, and it's been, like I said, I didn't use the language of it's complicated, but realize that there is so much complications in being able to be with that,
Yeah.
and
It's
because we're
it's
in our life,
fascinating.
right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And it's like, and there's so many, there's familial elements and cultural elements and, all the different aspects that kind of, like you said, whether it's an acceptable thing to show in an outward way
Right,
or whether it's this like sweet little thing you hold inside.
right,
And even like you've been mentioning these, it's almost like this compartmentalization that you absolutely necessarily had to do
right,
because that was not an accepted place to be, that was not an accepted thing to express at a
right,
large scale.
right,
um and so it's like finding the way, like, oh, I gotta get, like, I can't just be like, super blissed out.
right,
I gotta be here. But it's like, well, super blissed out isn't, it's an element of the happiness scale,
right,
but it's not the destination. It's not a destination. I think, it is like you've been talking about, it's this journey and this permeable membrane of coming in and out of the big joy places and then the subtle, smaller places, and also not being happy.
right,
You can't
right,
see it. You can't see
right,
it if you don't know the other side of it a
right,
little bit. You know what I mean? Like, you
yeah,
can't see it if you haven't seen the shadow of it. Like when it's like when you turn the corner and it's a big sunny day and you
right,
start to see that coolness, and sometimes you actually seek the coolness of the shade, right? Because you're like, I
yeah,
actually need a, like, a little
right,
bit of a break from that to know
right.
myself in a
Yeah, I
different
live in the
way.
South. Yeah, I totally get it. Where's the shade, right?
You're like, I am boiling,
Right,
you
right,
know, in that person's light or in the light
right,
of this. And I
right,
actually need a time to just to inwardly
right.
look and
Wow.
to feel the other elements so that I can go back into the sun and appreciate it. And
Right,
I love what you said right at the beginning about, the intention
right,
of not only saying happy day, like having that be something you're putting into the world right away, but also that to have happiness built into your life, you have to intentionally place the things that allow it to bloom in your life
right,
too. That it's, again, it's not a singular, it's not like, oh, well, if I just have more money, this will make me happy, I will find
right,
happiness. And I
right,
think, it's like putting all your eggs in one basket,
right,
as opposed to what are the things that bring that for me? Like, what is it psychologically? What is it in a body sense? Like, how do I literally feel? Where do I feel happiness in my
right,
body? What brings my body contentment? And then
right,
what brings my body joy?
right,
And what all those ways that you can kind of layer it in, like the people in your life,
Right.
who you surround yourself by. I think that was a lot of the realization that came to a lot of people around the Good Life Project community and camp in particular, is this sense of deep acceptance of
Right.
being wherever you were, and also that playtime with
Mm.
everybody,
Right.
and a lot of people kind of talked about getting off of camp and having the camp downslide because your
Right.
oxytocin levels were so high. You'd been hugging so
Right.
many people and
Right.
playing like, adult children for a weekend.
Right.
And it's like, how do you find the little bits of that in your life, and how do
Right.
you let that permeate? Because it's
Right.
not a singular path and destination. It's
Right.
like this really broad overall life satisfaction and meaning and being in the
Right.
world with all elements.
Right. I think you hit on it. The reason why I found myself unhappy more often was because I was connecting it to money, to my relationship, to
Yeah,
people, to all, and so when I was not have in good communication with my wife, I wasn't happy, right? So it was like,
yes,
so
yes, totally.
that was right. When I didn't have enough money, I wasn't happy, right? So it was just
Mhm.
like, okay, I can't give away my happiness that easy, right? That
Yeah,
quickly and simply, because in some cases, I felt like I had no control of it.
yeah,
I had no access to happiness. I was just giving it away. And even though, like I said, as a kid, I felt that I was just, being a kid and just kind of just like happy
yeah,
go lucky and all that other kind of stuff. And and family and people that were around me that were like reminding me of how hard my life was, right? How
right. Yeah,
how difficult, how other people saw me and all that other kind of stuff. So so for me a question was, am I happy? I want to be happy, not in spite of, like, in kind
mm,
of acting as if bad things are not
yeah,
happening, right?
yeah,
But in some cases, because of, I'm going to be happy, I choose to be happy because there are, those things, and I love how you put the shadows that we kind of seek. Sometimes I don't seek it, but it's like
yeah,
when shadows or darkness or things come upon me, it doesn't mess with my happiness, right? It has no, I can still find happy in those places. I can find in the cooling, in the relaxing, in the all that other kind of stuff that that I think that there was a time in my life that I just would not. There had to be these elements of perfect. I had to
yeah,
like check off all these boxes to, okay, now I can be happy, right? Right.
yeah,
And it's just like it just wasn't working anymore for me.
yeah, yeah. Because it sounds like there's this innate resilience as well, and
Mm,
they say, again, the experts, they say that happiness and resilience
mm,
often align.
mm,
Um, because it's almost talking to that, that introspection, or those moments of sadness, or those moments of emotions that we connote as, the bad ones,
right.
um, or the harder emotions,
Right.
or the harder places. And it's like the resilience in those moments, or
Right.
even just the embracing that it's part of the spectrum of being,
Right. Got it.
um, that acceptance of that spectrum of being
Mm,
is a resilience, and that resilience feeds
wow.
into the opportunity for happiness to occur, like,
Right.
or for a state of greater um, happiness, or a more positive outcome, or a neutral and then north of neutral kind of outcome to occur,
Right.
if we, in those in those harder places, those introspective, harder places, there
Hmm.
is that part of us that knows that this too shall pass,
Right.
and that this has value,
Right.
because we can't see we can't see other stuff without it.
Right.
It's part
Right.
of the beauty of living is
Hmm.
it's the really, really hard places, the guilt, the shame,
Right.
the pain, the uncertainty, certainly the sadness, that they are elements of essentially a reflection of happiness as well. Like that, we can't see happiness without them. We can't know what
Right.
it's like to feel ourselves pull from those places and bloom, you know?
Right. Right.
Um, it's almost, in a way, it's kind of like the analogy of a seed, where the seed is in a place that doesn't have sunlight,
Right.
and it's not inactive there. It's actually like grabbing its starches and getting nutrients and putting out feelers into the world. And it's got
Right.
this inner resilience where it's going to seek the sun,
Right.
and but it takes its time to get there, and then it kind of explodes itself a little bit at some point. It has to actually kind of have a fundamental shift, and then
Right.
from there it slowly seeks its way toward that light,
Right.
you know. And
Wow.
even a plant, like it needs sun and it needs rain,
Great.
but it still resiliently seeks that upward mobility, that upward
Right.
kind of movement,
Wow. It
you
it
know.
was it was what was coming up for me was this happy little journey to the sun, right? To the light,
Yeah.
just kind of gone there, and it's like um, I don't know, I've never been underground, right? But it was
Hmm.
like in that moment when you were speaking, there's this feeling of this darkness, and okay, oh, there's a little rock, or okay, what's that ant doing over there? And it's
Got to
like
get
this was
around
this
that.
right,
Get out of
it's
my
like
way.
right, it's like all of these things, like I got places to go, right, it's like, and it's like all of those things, um, and I think, going back, I just saw myself as this little kid. That's how I was. I was exploring, I was following my curiosity. That's what my quote unquote happy place was. It's
Yeah.
just learning stuff. It's just like making up stuff and just kind of, just kind of doing that. And when I felt that, you know, that was being put in question, then I wasn't able to be curious. I wasn't able to be happy. I wasn't able to, kind of show that.
Yeah.
And I hid that self from myself. It was like almost, using the seed and everything. I don't say I was going backwards, but it was just kind of just staying there. And I think
Yeah.
that's the conversation of my book Beyond the Shell. It was, the I created the shell
Yeah.
for protection. And it's like now I am encouraging myself and others to live beyond the shell, to find,
Yeah.
to get beyond the things that we feel that has to protect us, so we can find ourselves, so we can find the sun. And I think that that's the other thing that I like about the analogy, because I was looking at my book cover, because there's
Mm.
like this nice big sun, on the
Yeah. It's like, I'm
you know,
here, just so you
right?
know.
Hey, you just, and Will the turtle is just out there, kind of going out, kind of going out there, and
Yeah,
it's
and
like,
we all have different needs, and like to go back into the shell. Like we all
right,
have different kind of amounts that we're willing to be in the sun.
right,
And like, is it a cool day with the sun, the clouds going over every once in a while, so you get to like have a little chill time, or do you actually like need to go back in,
right,
regenerate, and then come
right,
back out and be able, and inside of that, it's not that happiness goes away.
right,
It's still there, like you said, like
right,
you were protecting this beautiful inner sense of happiness in this world,
Great.
and then breaking out of that shell to be able to share it with the world
Right.
has been a big part of your journey.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's something, it's that I think there were times that in that protection mode, I didn't think that happiness was present. Do you
Yeah,
understand?
I
It
do.
felt
I very much do.
it felt it felt like that because I was in that mode, I was no longer happy, but happy was there with me, right? And it's like, wow, I just got that.
Yeah. If
That
nothing but in juxtaposition, like if
right,
nothing else, maybe it wasn't like fully there,
right,
it, in a deep sad place. Maybe it's not fully there, but it's there in juxtaposition. It is there because
right,
you're in an opposite pole.
right. Wow.
It's like it doesn't. One of the things I was listening to, this woman, Sonia, she does a lot of stuff on happiness research.
Okay.
Sonia Lyubomirsky, so another really hard Russian name to say.
Right.
But she wrote The How of Happiness. She's the author of The How of Happiness.
Okay.
And and she was talking about um, that these again, these kind of like little elements of we kind of have when we're in depression or when we're in the very, very dark places. They're inward looking, and that innately happiness is outward looking.
Hmm.
So it's sometimes harder to find that way toward the outward look when we're in those deeper, darker places.
Right.
And what I find interesting about that is in the same way, it's kind of, again, it's like one exists because the other exists.
Hmm. Wow.
Like if you're inward looking, then the journey becomes, and having suffered from depression myself in the past, that it's like getting on the journey of finally being able to see out
Right.
was the journey to get there. But it's like it was actually always there,
Right. Wow.
you know? And
Wow.
and maybe that's hope. And I've had a friend of mine, she presented years ago to me this idea that happiness is hope,
Hmm.
that this idea, because it's not, again, a singular emotion. So what is this thing? And she presented it as it's hope, because hope has forward momentum,
Hmm.
which I thought was really fascinating. Just kind of an
Wow.
interesting thing to contemplate.
Right. Yeah. I can definitely see that my happiness or how happiness shows up, it is pulling me somewhere.
Yeah.
It is pulling me through somewhere. There is definitely movement in it.
Hmm.
There's really, I guess you know, when I sit in happiness, it is it is still creating something. It's still moving somewhere. It's either comes out in my words and writing or something.
Hmm.
It doesn't it feels like it's not just for me. You know?
That's
It's it
beautiful.
you
Yeah.
know? It's
Yeah.
just like, okay, we're happy. Do something. We're gonna
Yeah.
happiness is present, so we're going to be out. And it's just like I said,
It's like it's connection,
right. Yeah,
connecting
wow.
to maybe the divine, connecting to nature, connecting to your kids, connecting to your partner, connecting to your friends, connecting to the world. Yeah.
Right.
So
It's
interesting.
just looking for a connection. Um,
Yeah.
wow. It's and I think it's something. So, okay, let's unpack this for, while we're kind of getting, because it just showed up for me.
Mm.
Is so when I'm not happy,
Yeah.
it's because there is a disconnection in my life. I'm disconnected from something. So I have to look at my disconnections.
Yeah.
and see,
Well,
hey, where am I disconnected?
and I think that, this is one of the big thing that people are yelling about and really expressing themselves deeply about across the board right now in so many aspects of what's going on in our world is really the absolute and utter loss of connection because
Right,
of what's going on with COVID, but also this fundamental um, community cultural disconnect from one another
right,
that has been presented to us by the institutions that have controlled us for so long,
right,
that essentially their means of control has been to fundamentally disconnect us,
right,
which is stealing, in a way it's stealing our happiness, because
right,
we have been taught to not be connected,
right. Wow.
really, on some big fundamental empathetic human basic
Great.
levels. We've
Right.
lost the plot completely.
Right. And
Yeah, because
that's
it's been presented as disconnect.
right. And I think that's why, the language that is being used is matter, right? That's
Yes.
why we want to make sure that it matters. It matters not just for myself, it matters to you, it matters to others. It is all that other kind of stuff. I think the other thing that came up for me was the before COVID,
Mm.
how we saw technology and our virtual connections, right?
Yeah.
We felt that they weren't really real, right? You know, you, you
Yeah.
know, but it's because of our virtual connections now we're
Yeah.
able to really connect on this level. So there was this potential because it was virtual
Yeah.
to make the connection, but because it wasn't, face to face, or it wasn't, hand to hand, body to body, whatever,
Yeah.
those type of things, there was an element of we were devaluing it. And now, because that has changed for a lot of us, and we can't because of health reasons and a lot of other things, now this medium is not just stepping in, but helping us really connect on a level that is meaningful, or
Yeah.
that matters. And it's really fascinating that before all of this, I had so many excuses and reasons why I didn't do Facebook Lives, or
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
much video of anything.
Yeah.
But now, I do this daily conversation, and I'm just I kind of do that because this does make me happy,
Yeah.
because I have these level of conversations, and I'm following my curiosity, and I'm seeing my smiling friends, and all of the things that
Yeah.
that I was disconnected from, or I had a story that I was disconnected from.
Right.
And so it created, it's like, geez, I was creating my unhappiness, right? I was doing it.
Yeah.
you know
Yeah. Well, and that's like that realization of, what am I creating that disconnects, and which is
right,
maybe, that fundamental seed of happiness too.
right,
Um, that what am I doing that disconnects that? And then what are also institutions doing
right.
that like I didn't even realize, or
Realize,
maybe
right?
did realize, or some people real. I mean, a lot of it is the connection between, hey, hey, white girl, you have not been realizing that you are
Right,
disconnected in
right,
all these ways by this socialization and institution.
right,
And over here, I'm like, hi,
right,
waving right
right,
here.
right,
And that kind of refiguring of breaking down those structures that
right,
keep us away from our connection, thereby our happiness. And
right,
you're right, it's like everything around COVID has essentially made it necessary for
right.
us to figure this medium out in a
Wow,
whole nother way,
right,
because it is our only choice. I mean,
right,
you and I, like, why part of what brought me so much anticipatory happiness, over the last few weeks has been knowing that I get this time to connect with you.
Right.
That like we don't have camp anymore, and I have family in the area where you live, but like I don't know when I'm going to get to see them again, thereby maybe getting to see you, or like
Right.
all the things that could allow us to connect. And like I can watch you on Facebook and I could be like, hey Bill, and I can
Right.
like all the things, and that does give me some joy and connection. But
Right.
this is way more meaningful to me,
Right.
and has much more overreaching happiness that it brings to my life. If I think about like the week leading up to this conversation, and
Right.
how much happiness that brought me,
Yeah.
because of the hope of connection.
Right.
you
Wow.
know
No,
it's like, again, it's complicated, right? It's all
I
these
know.
elements.
It's like now I feel bad. It's like I gotta figure out a way to get but it's like we're connected, and
But
there is a number of people, and we can talk about this for hours, but I'm sure that
mhm,
there is other things that will have our attention and have our that we can lend our happiness to.
yeah.
But the one thing that I have taken on, that there's a lot of people from camp and even family members that it says, "Oh, I'm so glad to reconnect," and it's like, well, really, I'm not reconnecting.
Mm,
I was always connected, but
yes.
now this time is I get an opportunity to be reminded of our connection,
Yes,
to really
exactly.
embrace our connection. So there was never a disconnect.
Yeah.
There is just the awareness of our connections, and sometimes because of the busyness of life,
Yeah.
we 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 feel that, oh, I'm disconnected here or anything like that. It's like, no, there's we just lost the awareness of the connections that we have in our life. And Erin, I am so
Mm,
honored to have our connection. Is there anything
yeah.
that has come up in this conversation that you would like to leave everyone with, or kind of
Mm.
carry throughout your day?
you know I think just this idea that for me, and, and just like what's come up for me in this conversation, has been understanding that it is actually complicated, that there's a lot of different elements, and that it's not a singular place or a singular
Hmm.
feeling, this idea of happiness. So if the pressure to be happy, like this, like you
Right.
gotta be happy,
Right.
this kind of like, oh, happiness book and happiness this, and that person seems so happy,
Right.
that you're not, that it's not really about those elements. There's all sorts of quiet happiness, and there's all sorts of like inside the shell happiness, and
Right.
there's big and joyous moments for sure, but it's not a singular state of being.
Right.
And to just remind myself of that too,
Right.
because definitely like the dips are lower, and there's a lot more kind of roller coaster
Right.
going on right now in my own life and emotions, and to remember that there's a lot of different gradations
Hmm.
to this sense of well-being
Hmm.
that
Got
is
it.
happiness. Yeah.
Got it. No. Well, thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
I mean, we will say our goodbyes from the green room, but
Yeah, yeah.
this has definitely been great. Um,
Thank you so much for having
Blessings,
me,
my
Bill.
friends.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Wow. What I was gonna say. It's like, of all the conversations that I've had recently, it's like this is one that I was like, I didn't want to be mindful of the times. Like, she wouldn't mind if we stay on for hours, right? But it's like, no, it's like, and because I think it goes back to trying to hold on to happiness, and happiness is always with us. We don't have to hold on to it. It's not going anywhere. It is causing us to connect and to go out and to to be with others. And I that's what I got. I just saw myself as this little person. I don't know why I saw myself as this little person, but just kind of looking to connect to happiness, right? Just kind of just like, I'm happy. I can make, I got some, a happiness dealer or something. I don't know. It was just a really strange kind of image to have, but it was fun, right? So, I so much would love to hear how this conversation has shown up for you, and to have you use that in the comments and kind of do that. But if you would want to found value in this, I would love to hear about that too. Or if you would love to have a conversation like this on your own, I would love for you to connect with me on iamwilliambrown.com so we can explore your happiness or see some of the things how you're showing up. Because the world wants you, the world needs you, and the world is waiting for you. So go be you. Have a great rest of the day, and I will see you tomorrow.